Do you know beforehand, but like you say, you started with Sinus. Did you know then kind of where you wanted to go with the album? Did you have an image in your mind?
Yeah, yes and no, because I've kind of had this idea that I wanted to make an album that seemed a little bit more minimalistic and a little bit more space in the production. But I also knew that I really wanted to have some good songs in there, and Sinus is much more about synths and much more vibe going on. So I knew that this track could really fit well on the album, but I also knew that I had to come up with something else that was quite different, but still fitted into that song. So in the beginning, I actually thought that the album would be even more dark than it is now, because this Sinus track is quite dark and evil in a way. But then somehow sometimes you are having your plans and then you are actually writing something differently, and that's also the beautiful thing about being inspired and writing music, that you cannot always plan what to do and what will happen, and sometimes you should just follow your gut feeling.
Well, this is interesting because, like you said, some of the songs can be a bit darker or have this dark feel.
Yeah.
How much of that is reflected in your own mood? Does your mood change the type of song that comes out?
Yeah. It is funny because I don't feel really dark or really feel depressed. Maybe because I have this output called music, and I really have. I can quite easily get my emotions or feelings out through music, and some of the feelings that you have sometimes is definitely dark and can be melancholic, not dark maybe, but melancholic. But for me, melancholic can also sometimes be quite beautiful thing. The fall, the colors, and just thinking a little bit about life or missing someone is not always something that is bad. So it sounds like a big cliche, but for me, doing music is some kind of therapy, I think, and therefore I feel like a pretty happy boy.
That's good. Which track on the album then gave you this feeling the most, this sense of getting it out, or this?
That's actually a good question. One of the songs that worked very very well for me was a song called Circuits. It's a very aggressive kind of up-tempo punky stuff, because it was one day, I cannot really remember, but I just woke up like a bit frustrated also with the whole process of writing songs, and I had just done some very ambient stuff that didn't ended up on the album. I was a little bit like, now I really just want to do something that's just banging and something else. So that track took me like 20 minutes to kind of come up with the basic ideas for, and that was nice because it was like an outburst of something that I really needed to come out with, that way music is really beautiful, because you can use it in a very positive way, even if it's a negative energy maybe.
Sure. And also, well, you mentioned just now that the approach was a bit more minimalistic. Not to say that, but there's some bit more space. There's still a lot of things in there, but a bit more space. How come? Do you know why this kind of popped into your head to do it?
Yeah. Because I think it is very very easy now in a modern studio to really layer stuff, and you can do so many things. There are so many possibilities with software, hardware, and a lot of stuff. So sometimes you can easily get lost a little bit in what was your first idea, what was your spontaneous feeling, what made you start writing this song, because you can really easily overproduce something and it feels dead. So this time I really wanted to always remember to focus on what was the first idea, the first feelings, the first energy that kind of came up. And the best way of doing that is sometimes to say, like these parts, maybe we don't really need them. So if there, for example, is some synth parts or some guitar parts, maybe one track I was having 8 different guitar parts on top, and it sounded good, but it also was a little bit little bit too much, and maybe the song didn't really needed it, but because I was totally happy with my new guitar pedals and I thought it sounded great, I just put on a lot of guitar stuff or synths or whatever, and then I quite quickly found out that this is not gonna work. It's simply too much. So yeah.
But we mentioned the producing when you started out, and you not really liking DJing anymore, and with what you just mentioned, because that was a while ago. Since then, technology has grown quite a bit, and the possibilities, like you say, has grown quite a bit. How do you feel about electronic music that is being made now? Because like you also have this emphasis on playing the instruments, which isn't there a lot in electronic music.
Yeah, I'm maybe not really the right one to ask because I don't really listen that much to electronic music. And the funny thing is that I have actually never listened that much to electronic music. It has never been something that I've been listening to myself. But I think some of the electronic music that I'm hearing now, people are quite good at melding organic stuff into it. I think people are really tired of the really boring, like just 16 bars repeating, and then some hi-hat comes on, and some. So that whole genre is kind of pretty old-fashioned now. But I also think it's not modern at all. But a band like LCD Sound System really also took the club music and then they played it live, and that feeling is something that I also think is pretty cool, because it also allows the human factor, and it also allows small happy accidents. Sometimes you are actually doing an error while playing, and often when you're working with machines, you have to really think hard to make it sound more rough or make it sound more non-perfect, because a lot of people are seem to quantize the music so everything fits perfectly in every beat. And now there's a new school that you can hear that people are getting tired of that, and they are actually trying to make it sound more organic in a way.
Right. And you mentioned these happy accidents. Was there a happy accident on Fixion?
Yeah, definitely. Many times, especially with the sound of the synths, because I'm using guitar pedals quite a lot, and sometimes if I've made a really crazy sound of one song, and then I go on to the next song, and then I forget that I actually did this really extreme setting on one of the pedals, and by mistake I do an other synth sound, and suddenly it sounds really weird because that sound was made for another song. So suddenly, because you are working with hardware gear also, it's sometimes you simply do things that you don't really think about, and that can sometimes it can sound really terrible, and sometimes there can be some really cool stuff coming out because you didn't really plan to do it. It's just something that happened by mistake.
Sure. And finally, then, the album is called Fixion. When did the title pop into your mind?
Yeah, if that's a very good question, because normally when I'm doing albums, the title is something that I come up very very late, because I'm really bad at finding out what a title should sound, because it should hopefully define the music. But this title came up quite early, because I was thinking about what is it actually that I'm doing making music. It is like doing fiction. It is like building my own little dream world, creating I don't know what to call it, but creating a fake reality kind of thing, and that is also what fiction is about. And then I just spelled it with an X, because I also think it's like a fix to make music, wordplay. So but yeah.
But this is the way you describe it. Does music have a visual quality for you?
It is actually funny, because many people has asked me if I'm seeing my music visually also, because my music has that cinematic, very often has that thing, but it's not something that I actually do because when I'm writing, it's much more like an audio landscape that I'm maybe seeing or hearing. So it isn't really visual, but it definitely still is in a way, but in an audio way. It's really hard to explain. But I really love to have. To try to make more dimensions in the music, so you have a kind of a space that you cannot really point out, saying that here is the space and here's the music and here is something else. So I really love to have that thing. It is a little bit, if you're watching a David Lynch movie, there's this main story and this main plot, but then you also have some other stories underneath that sometimes go against the main story, and sometimes where they're having loose ends, and this idea about having something beautifully and then maybe something underneath, it's very, very subtle, but something that maybe is a bit creepy or something that isn't that nice, that plays a little bit against the main theme, is something that I think is really, really interesting to work with, also in music.
This is going to be my very last question, but this might be a very dumb question, but do you rediscover things in your own music? If you hear a song that you made a while back, do you, like you said, there's the main story, but then there's also the subplots and stuff?
It's not so much, because it is actually very, very rare that I actually listen to my own music. But I actually do it sometimes when we rehearse with the band for the live situation, because we also now we are playing some of the songs from my first album, Miss You, Moan, which we are playing in a quite new version, but still the same melody, of course. Especially Miss You has been changed quite a lot now, and it's really, really like sounds like Sono or something, a drone thing. So suddenly I can go back and definitely hear that, okay, this Miss You melody is actually quite strong, because I can do so many different things with it. So luckily, most of the times it's a good thing. But also sometimes if I listen to some of my really, really early stuff, I'm thinking, oh my god. But okay, you always learn. So yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Super.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And good questions.
Thank
really
you.
good questions. Yeah.